and welcome to Broadcast in Bed. I'm your host, Brendan Getchis, and welcome to the very first Breakdown in Bed, where I analyze ongoing political arguments and deconstruct the debate. Not millennial crying in bed. That's a different channel. I wrote this segment right after the Parkland High School tragedy, and I wasn't able to film it in time. So I said, I'll just wait until the next mass school shooting. Thank you for volunteering, Texas. There is an ongoing debate on firearm restriction in the United States. And as it's continued, I've started to see online comparisons of firearm restrictions to previous bans on alcohol, the prohibition, the war on drugs, and even telemarketing do not call list. Now, to advocates for guns, a ban or restriction in all cases seems the exact same, and use these previous historical examples of alcohol being banned and harassing phone calls being banned to say, hey, people were still able to find alcohol and get these phone calls. So why even bother trying to put restrictions or bans on guns? While gun control advocates say that these comparisons are absurd. Because did you know guns are not the same as alcohol, drugs, or harassing phone calls? So that's why I'm going to make two videos to bridge the gap. First, this video, where I analyze specifically why guns are not the same as alcohol, drugs, or telemarketers, and why those comparisons are invalid. And then a second video where I go over proposed firearm restrictions and how it's different than previous legislation that caused prohibition, the war on drugs, and the telemarketing do not call list. All in the hopes that the next time you see your family and friends to start an argument, you'll have a little more ammunition. Pew pew! Argument number 1. Alcohol, guns, and harassing phone calls were or are illegal, but people got them anyway, so we need to stop trying. Everybody go home. The response. Excuse me? Guns are not the same as alcohol, drugs, or telemarketers. So that's not a valid comparison. And I can prove why. Because they're not substitutes. Hold up. What is a substitute? It's an economic term that describes how different goods and services you can buy interact with each other. The exact definition. Substitute goods are goods that can be used in activities aimed to satisfy the same needs. One in place of another. From Valentino Piana, 2005. That's right, in video citations. Boom. But what is a substitute? For example, cheeseburgers. You need one fast. You want McDonald's, but Burger King's nearby. So you just go in. Cost about the same. Takes about the same time to make. You eat it. Not what you wanted, but similar. Enough so that by eating the Burger King burger, you're not going to go on a journey to find McDonald's. And that's what makes it a good substitute. It replaces your need for McDonald's. Now say you're going out, you're still hungry, and instead of finding Burger King, you find Taco Bell. It costs about the same. It takes about the same time to make again. But we all know that Taco Bell food is on a different level. Baja Blast for life. So while you satisfy the same need, or your stomach, there are major differences. That would be an example of an imperfect substitute. And finally, there's perfect substitutes, where you can't tell the difference. Say you get white paper. It could be Pale Lightning from the paper company, or White Thunder from Paper Incorporated. But either way, you stuck in your printer test the ink, it tells you need to buy more ink. You kick it a few times, and it prints out your whole project. There you go. Bang. Either way, the paper worked, and that's all you needed. You don't care, or you couldn't even tell the real differences. Whether you looked at the paper, felt the paper, smelled the paper, or ate the paper. I'm sure someone has. And that's what makes them good, perfect substitutes. Now let's go back to guns. And what is their role? The most basic definition I could find. Guns are goods that launch projectiles at high velocities with explosive force. Thank you, dictionary.com. There are many types of guns, ammunitions, makes, models, colors, flavors, but this is the most encompassing definition I could find for the function of a gun. And that way we compare it to alcohol, drugs, and telemarketing. And there are substitute goods that do fire or launch projectiles at high velocities. You can get a slingshot, you can go medieval with a crossbow, or the very popular potato cannon. But they don't shoot the same ammunition or at the same velocity, and the damage done to the target can vary wildly. And there are even different laws with carrying them around. When I can't carry my potato can in public, I'm just carrying around a stack of potatoes, which makes me look crazy. So you can see very quickly why these items are imperfect substitutes for guns. But now going back to the main argument, if guns can be substituted by alcohol, drugs, or phone calls, then we have to revisit legislation and restrictions. Because people have a point. We tried banning these items, it didn't work. But if guns are not substituted by drugs, alcohol, or phone calls, we have to ignore these people and move forward. And that's what we're gonna do. It's time to party with alcohol. Because I party a lot. Yeah, definitely. Cool, right here. I'm gonna need my cool guy sunglasses. Otherwise, this doesn't work. Can alcohol be a substitute for guns? Can alcohol shoot projectiles with explosive force? This college picture suggests maybe. But is that alcohol's intended purpose? Usually, alcohol is mixed in a drink in order for you to ingest it, so you get some taste, get some nutrition, and you forget everything else. Guns aren't meant to go in your mouth. Second, alcohol is consumable. Once you put it inside you, you can't reuse it, except for Kirkland beer. It's basically the same either way. Guns, on the other hand, can be reused to continue firing projectiles. Even if you use alcohol in self-defense, you only got one throw. Maybe two if you're lucky enough to get the bottle back, but that's about it, and then it's an awkward conversation when you tell someone why you threw a bottle at them, or your drink. And then we have to get into cost. There are some high-end alcohols, like this $1.3 million vodka stolen from Sweden. But most of the time, alcohol-based drinks are between $2 and $20, depending on where you live and what tourist trap you walked into. Guns, on the other hand, have an expensive barrier to entry. Looking at even the cheapest weapon on Cabela's hunting selection website, they'll set you back $300. And that's not to mention upkeep and ammunition. So really breaking it down. Alcohol is meant to be ingested. It's consumable, meaning you can only use it once. And it has a different cost. And it's very unlikely to fire a projectile at anything. Thus, it's not a good substitute for guns. So we need to stop using this comparison. But the party's not over yet, because we got drugs! The function of drugs is an ingested substance that causes a psychological or physical reaction from the body. Once again, least controversial definition possible. We're just comparing the functions. Do drugs make you shoot high-velocity projectiles with explosive force? I haven't found a drug that can do that. And I went to college. So I know. High five. Okay. But drugs are also consumable, which means you have to keep buying more. And this can become a long process if your dealer is trying to become your real friend. I do imagine when you buy ammunition, which is different than the gun, you can still reuse the gun, there could be some awkward gun store owner conversations. Hey, Jim! What you gonna do with that gun? Oh, I'm just, buying for shooting, Bob. Yeah. Oh, cool. I got some guns. Can I come with? No, Bob. Gonna be a shooting party with close friends. Like one or two, just a couple of us. Maybe next time. Okay. See you next week, Jim. In addition, there's also a large difference in cost. Now, while some drugs may come closer in cost to guns, I also have good evidence that drugs can be made in the crock pot. Source Migos. So when you take all these factors combined, you're not shooting high-velocity projectiles with drugs. You have to keep buying more because they're consumed. And the cost is completely different. Once again, drugs, not the same as guns. Bang, bang. That's 2 targets down. Let's go to our favorite folks, telemarketers. The function of telemarketers seem to be to suck out your soul and your money through conversation. And even if listening to one makes you want to kill yourself, unlike guns, they generally don't help you do that. However, telemarketers do work at high velocity, projectile sending voicemails at you one after another after you accidentally picked up and hung up right away that one time. They're not consumable. Once you stop one telemarketer, there are always more. And they're coming for you. Also, telemarketers do have a high cost in money, time, patience, and they affect thousands of people a year. This is the closest thing we've had to a gun so far. Except if you bring a telemarketer somewhere, you can block them on your phone and say go away. We found out the hard way that you can't really yell block at guns. You generally have to use a school teacher or a child to stop guns. So, with that said, telemarketers are not perfect substitutes for guns. So we have to stop comparing them with each other. And that's 3 targets, bang, 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 all down. Our investigation, we found that guns are not the same as alcohol, drugs, or telemarketers. With different functions and characteristics, it becomes dishonest to a national conversation to compare these attempts at restrictions for guns and these previous goods and services. So next time Uncle Gunnery gets a little angry, now you have a way to break down the argument. In our next video, I will cover how firearm legislation that's been proposed is much different in how it functions compared to previous legislation that created prohibition, the war on drugs, and the do not call list. But in the meantime, like, share, subscribe to my video. Let's get some good Facebook fights started. Thank you very much, and see you next time on Broadcast in Bed.